So today's project is going to be to start working on the really super duper long work table. Because you can't work on pieces of a boat that are 20 feet long if you don't have the space to do that. Hi, Walter. Watch out, buddy. So what we're doing is we're going to make 3 identical sawhorses using some of this cheaper lumber up here. And those 16-foot 2x12s as the top rails for basically what's just going to be a simple setup, take down, move around workbench. And the first part in that process is going to be to turn this 12-foot 2x8 into the top rail of the 3 different sawhorses. So to do that, we've got to cut them to length first, and then we're going to rip a 15-degree bevel right up the side so that the top of the sawhorse tilts in and the legs mount to the outside of that. Okay, so what we've done here is we ripped all of those, cross-cut all of those to length at 36 inches. Just using the skill saw, set them up on a couple of barrels. And then what we do is take each piece, run it through and cut a 15-degree bevel with the table saw with a rip fence just like that. Run it through once, do all 3 the same side, then set your rip fence a little bit closer, do all 3 on the other side. And you get basically what amounts to an arbitrary width, but you have the same angle on both sides. And it's definitely more than wide enough. I was using a 2x8 for the top of a sawhorse, so there's plenty of material there. So here's another interesting thing to keep in mind when you are cross-cutting longer pieces of wood to length and you're ripping a bevel or cutting a bevel. As you cross-cut, you're going to lose some of your overall dimensional length because of the angle of the cut. So basically what you do is you say, okay, I have 12 feet of this 2x6 and I need to make 4 legs out of that one 12-foot section of 2x6. So you start out and say, okay, 12 feet divided by 4 is 36 inches or 3 feet, but I'm not going to quite get that. So basically what I did and fell into it by accident was just to rip them or cross cut them at 36 inches, and then you get the last piece out of that 2x6 and it's a little bit shorter, so that becomes your pilot piece. And you say, okay, what's the most I can get out of this? Looks like it's about 35 inches on these guys. So you cut that one to 35 and then go back through and cut the other 3 legs back to 35 inches with that same bevel. A lot of people who are smarter than me would have just planned that out ahead of time, but it's something to keep in mind. So here's a look at one 90% completed sawhorse. Like I said, there'll be 3 of these that'll run beginning, middle, and end the length of those 16-foot 2x12s. There'll be a little bit of gap on either side, but that will make a seriously heavy-duty workbench. And like I said, when you're building a boat, most of the lumber that you're working with is particularly long and makes working on a small little workbench like that fairly difficult. So you can see how all the pieces string together. Got to add a few more screws here and there to firm it up, but that's one completed unit basically. So we've got 2 sawhorses done, and before I started on the 3rd one, I wanted to talk to you about a couple of changes that I've decided to make sort of mid-flight, and that's pretty much regarding my pre-drilling countersink and what I'm using for screws. So the process before was initially to drill with a 3/32, follow up with a busted countersink that has a 3/32 bit that's been broken off, but you're only using this part here anyway, so that busted bit just adds to guide the bit down, and then you get your countersink here. And then you would screw in a wood screw. The drawback to that was you had 3 bit changes for every screw that you put in, and it was killing the battery on my handheld. So the change that I made was to go to a tapered number 10 countersink bit. So that basically combines this, and it's a tapered bit for working with a larger number, 10 screws. So hopefully you won't get any splitting, not unlike what happens there. That was countersunk, but still managed to bust through. And when you're working with really, really dry wood like this is white fir, that's gonna happen. I mean, this is just cheesy Lowe's wood. It's not hardwood by any means, so it does bust out, especially near the end grain. Those ones came out okay, but you can see there that that definitely split right down the end of it. So we're trying to avoid that. Made a couple of changes, and basically these new screws come with a T25 head. And we're gonna see if that doesn't work a little bit better than the Phillips. So quick update from the really super duper long worktop. You can see that we are assembled and in business here. We've actually moved on to a couple of other projects, namely cutting those chine logs out of 2 slabs that were similar to what I have left over. Those are going to become guards. But I just wanted to show you how versatile this worktop really is, and you know, it takes you about 3 minutes to take it all down, put it outside, set it up somewhere, set it up next to the house. If you're working on something that's a little bit higher, those 2x12s will support, you know, 250 pounds easily. So really super versatile top. And as I had said before, excuse the nasty trash can, but the leg braces also provide a couple of extra shelf options later down the road. And of course I could throw another 2x12 up top there if I wanted to fill in the worktop, but usually what I end up doing is having those set back against the wall and using that extra foot of space just on the sawhorse itself. But that's what the table ends up looking like. Gives you a ton of space. And where we're going to be connecting these chine logs end to end, going to be up to about 23-4 feet. Really, really helps to have a solid work table. And not only that, but something that you can clamp to. As you can see here, this is a scarf joint that I test cut using the power plane and a smaller piece of red oak to see how it would go on the larger pieces there. And this is basically exactly how I'm going to do it on the actual chine logs, and we'll clamp them right down to the table and yeah, have some super, super duper long chine logs.